The New York Times quoted a Somalia analyst about the country's presidential election who said, "The least corrupt and most well-liked candidate won Somalia's most corrupt and least democratic election." We're going to talk about the new president in Somalia with Ahmed Samatar, professor of international studies at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota. Thanks a lot for joining us again, Ahmed.
Thank you, Jerome.
You know, we've talked before about what kind of thing the Somalian government is, and I noticed that one of the guys running for the office of president said that the Somalian government had no authority, no popular support, no monopoly on violence. It's a fake state. And he was running for the office of president of this fake state.
He was right, and he's still right. Yes.
What does it mean to have a presidency and a institution like this? What is this thing that is in Somalia? Because all these people put aid and money into Somalia through this institution.
Yes, and to no avail, to be honest with you. I think what it means at one level, in the most basic sense, is a small group of the Somali corrupt elite in Mogadishu. And we have to remind your good audience that there are two Somalias. There is Somalia and Somaliland. And these are now two different countries. But in Mogadishu, there's a small elite whose whole project, I think, by and large, there are some differences of intensity, but generally the same. Their project is essentially to continue to hack and try to cannibalize what there is of public authority still left in Somalia. And the elections that have taken place, as other observers have underscored many times, were probably the most corrupt in the history of Somali political society since 1960.
There seemed to be almost a bidding war for various candidates, and you talk about outside interference in an election. Turkey had their candidate, the Gulf states had their candidate, all sorts of people had their candidate.
Yes, yeah. Somalia, Mogadishu politics has become, indeed, particularly in these last 25 years, a place where anybody can walk in any time, do whatever they want to do, as long as they have a bit of extra cash. And that is to a certain extent what we were watching, whether it is Qatar, the small country, really a very small place in the Middle East, but with a lot of excess cash, United Arab Emirates, the Turks, who are now deep, their hands are deep into Somalia, and many others, the Ethiopians on the other side, the Kenyans on the other side. Many of these societies now involved in this to have their own person in there. And therefore, Somali politics in Mogadishu becomes a kind of a flea market. Whoever has the extra cash can buy their way.
Now, the gentleman who won the presidential contest, he is Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed. He's a former prime minister, and apparently he had done some good things while prime minister, tried to straighten out some things, and was thought to be the least corrupt candidate. Is there a frustration even among the corrupt elite for a little less corruption?
Well, could be. I know him personally, the new president, and he's a proper person, and I think some of the characteristics that have been articulated by other observers are true. He's the least corrupt. He has some professional competence, not at the highest levels, but some professional competence. And the time, very short time, barely a year or so when he was prime minister, there was an immediate confrontation with the president at that time over the issue of paying the salaries of soldiers and policemen and some of the civil service. And he was insisting on that. So on that score, he did show some courage and I think some ethical commitment to meet some of the basic responsibilities of the government. Whether he now would be able to clean all of that and appeal to the Somali people, particularly in Somalia, to a new dawn in which corruption will be at bay and the reconstruction of the country will take place. That is a big, big question, and I am not quite, I think, confident that this will take place.
And Al-Shabaab, the group that the international community wants to fight there, they just kind of laid low during the election because they thought it was such an embarrassment that it didn't, it couldn't possibly hurt. It makes them look good.
Oh, yes, they're laughing, and they have been laughing because for a long time, despite their cruel tactics, and bloody approach to politics in Mogadishu and in Somalia. Al-Shabaab has always made the argument that they were highly ethical. They were driven by a particular kind of a puritanical Islam, which was bent on cleansing the country. And for them to be watching the most corrupt political machinations taking place in Mogadishu since the independence of the country in 1960, that is a nice gift to them, because they will continue to make that argument. And I will not be surprised that if they will start their new initiatives in the very near future on this.
I'm talking with Ahmed Samatar, professor of international studies at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota. We've been talking about the presidential election, or contest as it is, in Somalia.